All right, my friends, welcome back to another episode of the Couch Podcast. As always, or sometimes, sometimes it's me on here, sometimes it's myself and another counselor. It just depends on the flow of the practice. If you're new to the podcast, welcome back to the Couch. This is the podcast where we talk about honest conversations about mental health, about relationships, about becoming the healthiest version of ourselves. My name is Dr. Juan Santos. I'm a licensed counselor, founder of Santos Counseling, but I'm not going to take all the credit. Credit is due. Credit is due to the team collectively. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for each individual that really showed up and invested, in those values within the practice itself, within supporting and being roots in this community here in the wonderful area of Greensboro, North Carolina. Today we're talking about something that I think in essence, it can sound simple, right? Like, hey, you got boundaries, especially in adulthood. There's this feeling as an adult that you just have to have all your shit together. So some of us do, some of us pretend to do. What I want you to think about is, when it comes to boundary, see if this resonates, right? See if this resonates. If you ever found yourself exhausted, resentful, right? Really, really annoyed maybe by some things that you said yes to and you didn't want to say yes to. Maybe overwhelmed. Maybe wondering why constantly, week after week, month after month, year after year, you keep putting yourself before others. Now remember, there is a compassionate side of putting yourself before others, right? But there's also this sense of you do it so much that you start to lose yourself, right? You start to say yes when you mean no. That's where you break an oath to yourself, right? That's why we're here today. We're diving into this topic of boundaries in adulthood. Let's start with what boundaries are. I want you to just sit with that, maybe meditate a moment. What does a boundary mean to me? Boundaries aren't walls. A wall means that I keep everything away, right? Nothing can get to me and I can't get to them. I like to look at a boundary as that, perhaps that same wall, but somewhere along that wall, there's like this door. And I could have just said a fence with a gate. That would have made a lot more sense. But you're the one that built this fence. You're the one that built the gates or the multiple gates. You get to decide, my friend, not me, not anybody else around you. You get to decide what you allow into your life, right? You get to decide what you want to keep out. Who has access to you? That's your decision. And then you know what? You get to really decide under what circumstances those things take place. I find that one of the areas people get really stuck with when it comes to boundaries is this sense of trying to control the other person, right? It's almost like they build this gate and it has a fence, and it has a gate. And then what they're trying to do is they're trying to really yell at people. You need to do this for me. You need to treat me this way. And then, that really causes a person to get overwhelmed, to get exhausted. A boundary is not about controlling other people. A boundary, and listen closely here, a boundary is about you managing your own behavior. You managing your own behavior. Because look, you can't make someone respect you, right? But you can decide what you will do. This is where it goes into managing your own behavior. You get to decide what you'll do when you are in a space that you feel hurt, that you feel disrespected. That's a huge difference, a tremendous difference. I think it creates a level of empowerment for a person. I find there's a reason why boundaries get harder in adulthood. I think as kids, many of us were taught to do what? Right? I want you to think about it. What are we taught to do as a kid? Collectively as a whole, I think people as children are taught to be nice, right? To be kind, to be polite, to say yes, to say please, to say thank you, to say, can I help you with this? We're taught as kids to don't be a disappointment, right? Don't disappoint people. Don't let people down. We're taught as a kid, be a helper, be a helping helper, help everyone around you. We're taught as a kid, don't make anybody upset, don't make them cranky. And there's value in those messages. I'm not going to squash them. There is wonderful value. Many of them I teach my children. Many of them I continue to work on myself in adulthood. But there's a big but, right? And that but, with one T, head out of the gutter, please. That but has to include a level of balance, right? You need that balance in there. Because if not, then suddenly you're an adult and you're saying way too many yeses when deep down you mean no. You're letting way too many people have access to you when deep down you don't want to. You're answering work emails like at 2 in the morning or 11 at night. You're with your family hanging out. And then you got this emotional burden taking place. It's not even yours. You're exhausted. And you know what? When we struggle with boundaries, we can feel all those things and we could do all those things. We could say yes way too much. We can have a really difficult struggle with work and life balance. And we still find ourselves feeling guilty. Right? We find ourselves feeling guilty and we're like, shit, why do I feel guilty for wanting time for myself? And I think there's some space in there where many adults, we confuse being loving, right? Being loving with being endlessly available. Wow. I mean, just really think about that. Ask yourself, do I confuse being loving with being endlessly available? Because you know what? They're not one of the same. They are not the same thing. Being available 24/7, goodness, that isn't love. I think that's a recipe for burnout. Talking about burnout, there's some signs your boundaries need work. I want you to just maybe make a mental note of this and think about them. If some of these sound familiar, it's a good step to start looking at either working with a counselor, reach out to Santos Counseling, reach out to a counselor near you. Now, if you're not in the Greensboro area, know that the practice, we do support everyone in North Carolina through a remote session. So look, you may be thinking, all right, what are these signs? The signs are you feel guilty, right? You feel this sense of like, oh, it doesn't feel good. I feel bad. I feel guilty when I say no. A sign could be that you overly explain a decision. Oh, you know what? So many of us fall into this one. Be honest with yourself. Do you do this one? I'm not there with you. Maybe you're nodding and going, yeah, I do that. Well, you know what? Me too. You feel responsible for fixing everyone's problems around you. It's like a problem happens and you just turn it into this superhero called Problem Fixer. You got a cape with a big P for problem and S. There's no S in there. Problem F, fixer. There we go. You feel emotionally drained. You are exhausted after spending time with certain people. And likely those are people that you're probably not doing the best job when it comes to access. And then it could be you avoid conflict by sacrificing your own needs. So are you noticing something here? Because many of these, they're not problems with other people. And that's the point that I really want to hone in on for you. These are not problems with other people, right? These are connected to you, my friend. These are things happening with you, not with other people, with you. And I think there's something really good in that, because I want you to hear me out here for a moment. When you think about this and you go, okay, these are things happening with me. And here's why, all humor aside, here's why I say this is a good thing. When we first started this episode, I shared with you that one of the mistakes people make is they try to control other people when it comes to boundaries, right? You need to respect me. So there's so much control in there. And I think when you do that, you're in essence trying to control everything on the outside, which becomes really exhausting and impossible. But here's what's good about what I'm sharing with you. Knowing that you don't have to control anyone on the outside, it gives you a sense of empowerment, because you are able to then think about, oh, I can now control myself, right? And that's the good news, that the pattern that you have is a pattern where you are managing you. All right. I want to share with you 3 healthy boundary shifts. This won't take long. They're practical. You can probably start doing them today. Number 1, stop apologizing for having needs. And, really get to know your needs. Jot them down. What are my needs? Blah, 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 blah. So this could come out verbally. Instead of saying, I'm sorry I can't, ... try, I appreciate you asking, but I'm unavailable. I mean, you see that difference? It's short, it's sweet. That's a bumper sticker right there. That's a little humor. I don't know if that could be a bumper sticker. Second, remember that no, this is taught over and over and over. No is a complete sentence. I remember I sat down with this colleague of mine and they were like, look, we don't need a whole PowerPoint for a no. We don't need this grand presentation for a no. No is no. The more we over-explain, the more often we're trying to really find permission for that person to let us off the hook, right? And you're the one that holds that power. Number 3, recognize that disappointment is such an important one. Disappointment isn't always damage. It's okay to say no. It's okay for healthy people to be connected to each other, and then one of them says, "Oh, I was really hoping you'd help." Right? So they're a bit disappointed. They got to go find somebody else to get help from. That's okay. Right? That should not tarnish your relationship. If it does, then there's something to say about that relationship. Someone else's disappointment doesn't automatically mean that you're doing something wrong. I work with a lot of couples, and something that I share with them is that healthy relationships survive healthy boundaries. And it's because at times, the spouses will say no to one another about something. One of them gets disappointed, and the other will try to have this whole presentation on why they said what they said. And really, they're looking for the other one to let them off the hook. And what I encourage them to look at is each of you can have healthy boundaries, just as I'm encouraging you to look at it. You can have healthy boundaries. And that can exist within a healthy relationship. So there will be times, right, guaranteed, that you're going to say no, you're going to not be able to do something. And it's normal for the other person to kind of go, "Oh, that sucks," right? It's a level of disappointment, but it doesn't mean that you have to carry that on. I think this, maybe deep down, but I'm going to say it anyways. Boundaries aren't selfish. They're not. You've probably heard of that analogy, right? Where there's like this airplane scene, the airplane is going down, kind of crashing, and we're told, who do we put the oxygen mask on first, right? Yourself, your kids, and in that scenario, right, you're told that you put it on you first, so then you can help them, right? It's not selfish, right? You're looking at what makes sense in that moment, what you're capable of doing. I hope you found this episode helpful, and I want to leave you with a challenge you can maybe plug in. I want you to choose one boundary. Is it saying no? We talked a little bit about that. Is it turning off work notifications after a certain hour? Is it taking one evening to yourself where you do you? Is it waiting before immediately responding? Get that text, just pause for a moment. Look, start small. You got a long life. Start small, find a stride, find a rhythm that works for you, and consistently build that confidence. You're going to feel it. You're going to really live in it. My hope is that you found this episode helpful. Create boundaries. I think that leads to a stronger, healthier you. Take care of your mind, take care of your relationships, and keep moving, my friend. Keep moving your wellness forward. Now, again, my name is Dr. Juan Santos. I want to thank you for being a listener here on the couch. If you found this helpful, send a text, copy the link, send it to a buddy, get on the wherever you're listening at, leave me a review, let me know what you think. I will really appreciate both of those kindness. I'll catch you in the next one.